Hey everybody, Rob Maurer here, and today we are talking about Tesla's Gigafactory in New York, specifically as it relates to ventilator production. And we also have news on the $2 trillion plus stimulus package and some additional context to add around that. Another strong day for Tesla today, finishing up 6.8% to $539.25. That compared to the Nasdaq, which was down about 0.5%, while the S&P 500 was up 1.1%, with the Dow up 2.4%. So kind of a mixed day for the macro environment, but we'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end of the episode. First, I wanted to start with the Tesla news, and at this point in time, the Tesla news is around ventilators. So previously in the week, we talked about how Tesla has sourced about 1,200 ventilators from China, and they have now been distributing those ventilators. But we've also heard that Tesla plans to assist with manufacturing of ventilators as well. And Elon Musk over the weekend had tweeted, quote, "Just had a long engineering discussion with Medtronic about state-of-the-art ventilators. Very impressive team," end quote. And now today, Medtronic CEO appeared on CNBC for about a 10-minute interview on the ventilator situation and how they're handling it. Medtronic, of course, produces ventilators. And they said that they have already doubled their capacity, and they're on the way to doubling capacity again for the output of ventilators. And also confirmed they are working with Tesla, saying, quote, "We're also opening up with other partners who have come forward, and Tesla is one that I think people have heard about, where one of our ventilators will be made by them, and they're fast on track to try to make that as well," end quote. When asked about the specifics of what ventilators they would be making or the conversations and how they've gone with Elon Musk, Medtronic CEO basically said that they have manufacturing capabilities there and that Tesla will be producing one of their ventilators in parallel to Medtronic's production. And it sounded like on the range of all ventilators that are needed, this would be sort of middle tier in complexity. Because the thing is with ventilators, there are different levels of acuity, meaning that different levels of severity in cases that need to be treated with ventilators can be treated by different ventilators. So the top of the line ventilators can of course treat any case, but they're not needed for every single case. So Medtronic produces a range of what appears to be 4 different types of ventilators, and from these comments I assume Tesla's producing one of the 2 middle tier options. Anyway, on the news on Gigafactory New York, Viv over on Twitter at Falcon Heavy with no vowels tweeted about that interview today, and Elon responded to it saying that they were, quote, "making good progress. We will do whatever is needed to help in these difficult times," end quote. Adding then, quote, "Giga New York will reopen for ventilator production as soon as humanly possible. We will do anything in our power to help the citizens of New York," end quote. New York is obviously supportive of this. New York Assemblyman Sean Ryan said, quote, "At this difficult time, it is critical that each of us do our part to ensure our state can respond to the growing pandemic. I thank Elon Musk and the team at Tesla for announcing that they are working on a plan. Tesla's factory in Buffalo would be an ideal location to ramp up ventilator production, and I urge them to make this commitment immediately," end quote. So as we've talked about earlier this week, New York seems to be in the most dire circumstances right now. Governor Andrew Cuomo has said that they need up to 30,000 more ventilators to satisfy their need. Right now, the Medtronic CEO said that there are about 60,000 ventilators in the entirety of the US. So right now, seemingly every single one that can be produced is something that could potentially be a life-saving item for somebody. So it's really great to see Tesla and other companies like the other automakers, Ford and GM, also stepping up to help do what they can to help get those ventilator numbers up. The other important point here, which I would say the Medtronic CEO spent at least half the interview with CNBC emphasizing, is the need for proper allocation of these ventilators. So we know there is a range of ventilators that can treat different severity of cases. It's all about getting those ventilators in the right place at the right time based on the need in any individual location. Hopefully, because the US is so geographically large, we'll see peaks in different regions occur at different points in time. And this is another, again, benefit of flattening the curve, because the less severe those peaks are and the more distributed in time that the peaks in different locations happen at, the more effectively we're able to use those resources that we do have. The other thing that I was curious about, just for context, was the price of ventilators. Not that I would expect Tesla to generate any sort of profit on this, of course. That is not the reason Tesla is doing this. I would actually be shocked if Tesla's not doing this at a loss. But again, I do still think it's helpful to have a general understanding of this. Medtronic says that a ventilator can cost anywhere from $5,000 to $50,000 per unit. So even just looking at the 1,255 ventilators that Tesla already procured from China, and we assume that those are even on the lower end of the range in terms of like the wholesale cost for Tesla, at let's say $10,000 a unit, that would still be about $12.5 million, which by the way, Tesla said they would be providing for free. So if Tesla does ramp up production of this, and if they are able to provide a few thousand units, we could be looking at, maybe a $50 million or $100 million contribution from Tesla. Whether they end up charging for that at cost or whether they actually just end up donating it would remain to be seen. But either way, the potential is there for a pretty significant contribution. Moving on then from ventilators into the other big macro environment news today. Obviously, we've been talking over the last few days about the stimulus package. So that is now coming to $2.2 trillion. That has been agreed to by leaders in Congress. It now goes to a vote first in the Senate, then following that, a vote in the House of Representatives, and then after that, to President Trump to sign. Where we're at in that process right now, as I'm recording, is that it has passed the vote in the Senate unanimously, a 96-0 vote. So it now moves to the House, and a vote from the House is expected on Friday morning. That is, of course, also expected to pass in the House, and then Trump has announced his intent to sign. So the stimulus document is, I guess, over 900 pages, and details are still coming out. We don't have the final details yet, but essentially this will provide about $250 billion in direct payments to individuals and families. That will be in the form of a $1,200 check for individual filers with an adjusted gross income below $75,000. That phases out all the way up to $99,000 in adjusted annual gross income. And then for couples, those limits are higher, but it's $2,400 for couples with $500 per child under 17. So that's $250 billion. Then there is $350 billion in small business loans, $250 billion in additional unemployment insurance benefits. That takes the form of $600 extra per week for up to 4 months. Reminder, we have the unemployment report happening tomorrow morning. Definitely something to keep an eye on, and we'll talk about it. Then there's about $500 billion in loans for distressed companies, $130 billion in funding for hospitals, $32 billion in funding for airlines and airports. And if you're keeping tally at home, that doesn't quite add up to $2.2 trillion yet, so I'm not sure exactly what the allocation is for the rest of the money, but I'm sure we'll get more details on that over the next few days. We'll have to wait and see on those details, but as of right now, aside from the macroeconomic impact to this, in terms of specific impacts to Tesla, I'm not seeing a whole lot, but again, that may change. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi today also made some comments that this may not be the last stimulus, and perhaps probably is likely not the last stimulus, telling CNBC that she doesn't think that the current $2 trillion stimulus will help keep the economy afloat beyond a few months, saying, quote, "I don't think we have enough to go the 3 months," end quote. And then adding in an interview with another outlet, I believe NBC, quote, "What is important is for us to recognize the good that is in this bill, appreciate it for what it does, don't judge it for what it doesn't, because we have more bills to come," end quote. So I think the market will probably take those comments and start looking forward, now that this bill is passed, to another stimulus package in the future. Obviously that could be a few months, but the thought of that materializing could help keep markets afloat. Who knows though, because right now as I'm recording, NASDAQ futures are down about 1%. So we'll just have to see. Volatility expected to continue. So that is it for today. As always, thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and sign up for notifications. You can also follow me on Twitter at Tesla Podcast. And I'll see you tomorrow for the Thursday, March 26th episode of Tesla Daily. Thank you.